Beards and Flicks, baby.
Okay, guys, welcome back to Beards and Flicks.
Hey!
My name is Brad Johnson. I am joined, as always, with my partner in crime, my brain just stopped.
You were killing it, too, before we started recording.
I am joined by my partner in crime, Mikey D.
AKA many names.
Many names.
I won't go through them all again.
Justice League.
Yeah, he doesn't like Justice League, so we're going to cancel the Justice League.
This is our third podcast to record this weekend. The first one we did, you brought up Justice League as one of your new nicknames.
Yeah.
I'm okay. You know, now that I think about it, I'm kind of okay with
Hey.
it. Whatever.
Okay.
I like Justice League.
We're back.
Because you tend to go towards DC more than Marvel.
Which is really weird, though.
Is that true?
It kind of is,
Okay.
I guess.
And I go towards Marvel more.
Go towards Marvel,
which
yeah.
I grew up loving Batman first, and then I learned about X-Men, and I got into Marvel more.
Okay, yeah.
So I'm more Marvel. You're more.
And when it comes to movies, I'm more Marvel movies.
Well, of course, I think everybody
yeah, well,
should be.
right.
We're talking about Home Alone today, and let's start this conversation with Christmas traditions.
Christmas tradition.
This is something that I wanted to include on the last podcast, but we forgot about it, so we're going to include it now.
Yep.
So is this Home Alone a part of your Christmas tradition?
It absolutely is. It's funny because I have a cousin who, he listens to the podcast. He likes the podcast.
Awesome.
And a few years ago, he would always tell me, it's not Christmas if I don't watch Home Alone.
Man, that's so
and
true.
I feel the exact same way.
Yeah.
This one probably more than any of the other Christmas movies.
Yeah.
Is the one where it's like, if I don't see this, Christmas isn't right for me.
It's funny you said that because there's something I share every year. It's a radio commercial I made for Fresh, where I am I do a shelf elf voice, and I shared it this past week, and Jeff Warren said it's Christmas now.
Nice.
Because I shared this.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jeff. So.
Fresh Shelf Elf here. There are so many reasons to shop at Fresh. Need some holiday cheer? We have buku beer. Pine for a good wine while you dine? Our wines are fine and divine. You're sure to find holiday meals, fresh meats, and seafood galore. And our decadent desserts you will surely adore. For the hostess with the mostest hosting a party, come to Freshville and see how magical your table can be. Fresh by Brookshire's. We prepare, you share.
So yeah, Christmas tradition, there's like certain things that I'll do like just the month of December, like the week before, the day of, the Christmas Eve. There's like certain, not rituals, I guess you want to call them rituals, but I'm not conjuring anything.
Not in a weird like religious
a witchy
sense.
way or
sure.
nothing like that.
Yeah.
But there's just certain things that I do like throughout the month of December, gearing up for Christmas Day. And there's like a super heavy depression after Christmas Day, like a post-Christmas depression. Because I guess emotionally I've been like gearing up really since Thanksgiving. And then so for that whole 30, 31 days, you get to Christmas and it's like, it's all over. It's like when you spend months producing a show for Netflix or one of the streaming services, you put out 10, 12 episodes and then everybody binges it and it's over. It's like my whole body of work, you guys just watched in the course of 2 days.
So you find yourself going, well, now what?
Yeah, now what do I do?
Yeah. Well, we're starting these traditions earlier this year. This is November.
Yeah, mid-November.
In order for us to release these podcast episodes in December,
Yeah.
we're watching them a little earlier. So it's kind of fun. We're kind of extending the Christmas feelings and Christmas traditions by a few weeks because of that.
On the way here, I actually had the AC on right in my face to like get me crispy.
Which is cool because it was colder this morning when I woke up. Like the breeze is really kicked up.
It's gonna be colder tonight too.
Some fall or winter temperatures are going to join us. So it's Christmas season, and I love Christmas season. And we're talking about Home Alone.
You know what? Before we actually dive into the movie, I was thinking about this morning, getting ready. I've met quite a few people who hate the Christmas season. They hate hearing Christmas songs. They hate like just the overall theme of Christmas, what it stands for.
Yeah.
And I think this particular Christmas in 2020 is gonna be more like that. It's gonna resonate more in that way for a lot of other people. It's because of the way 2020's been.
Yeah.
People that don't have jobs, they didn't go back to a job after.
They can't purchase gifts for their friends or their family.
Right.
Because they don't have any money to.
People have lost homes, they don't have their usual home to celebrate in.
Yep.
But I mean, just in general, there are people who just are not fans of this season. And The first time I had someone tell me that, I almost took personal offense because I still am in tune with the emotional feelings of Christmas from childhood.
Right.
So a second ago we were talking about traditions, and one of the traditions that I used to partake in, like as a kid growing up, was my sister and I would get up at 2 or 3 in the morning because we really didn't sleep. We would just go to bed. Our parents would tell us to go to bed. We would go to bed and be so excited, and we didn't sleep. So I'd get up first because I'm 4 years older than her. I'd get up first and go get her, and I'd be like, "Yo, let's go scope out the tree and see what presents were there that weren't there the night we went to bed."
When you went to bed, yeah.
So after we kind of marvel at that for a second, we say, "Let's go wake up mom and dad and see if we can open these presents." And we'll go wake them up and harass them, and we say, "Can we open presents?" And they'll look at the clock and be like, "Fam, it's 3 in the morning. Like, go back to bed." Like they haven't been in bed long, obviously.
Yeah.
So we would like just sit in front of the tree until they finally decide to get up.
Yep.
And they come in, there's like eye crispies in their eye because they've been asleep.
Eye Krispies.
And
Yeah.
they come in and they kind of just sit down and they're still half asleep, half awake.
Of course.
And eventually they say, "Well, you guys got us up. Go ahead and, start opening presents." Now, one year they let us open one on Christmas Eve.
That's cool.
Which I know is a big tradition for a lot of people. We did it one year, and I don't think we ever did it again.
We did that a couple of times. It wasn't we didn't make it a tradition because we wanted to save all of it for the next morning.
And that's
Yeah.
why I think we stopped. And that was the year I really wanted. Mortal Kombat was coming out on Super Nintendo.
The first one?
The first one.
Nice.
With no blood. Remember that when it
Yep.
came out on the consoles, it was no blood.
Yep.
And I know what the box looked like.
Yep.
And so I said, I'm gonna open this one. And sure enough, that's what it was.
That was it, yeah.
Yeah. And as we've gotten older, so I've got a 13-year-old niece. So now our tradition is more of we'll let them do their thing,
Yeah.
my sister and her family, and then they'll drive into Tyler and we'll all kind of congregate at my parents' house, and we'll open everyone else's presents there and then eat. So now that I'm older, my thing is I want to eat first. I wake up, I'm hungry.
Yeah, right.
We can open these presents here in a second.
Yeah.
But we
like
open presents.
With me, I want coffee like immediately when I
Yeah.
get up. Yeah.
So now we open presents, then we eat, and then we usually play like a variety of board games.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, the older we got, the less important the Christmas gifts were.
Yeah.
It's more about the just doing it. Didn't matter when we did it, just doing it.
Yeah, because now we don't even really ask for stuff anymore.
Yeah.
My mom, she went through this phase for years of where every year I knew it was gonna get socks.
Yeah.
Like tube socks. And not like the ankle socks, but not also the knee socks. They'd be like the 3/4 socks.
Interesting.
I'm like, Mom, where am I gonna wear these?
Yeah.
Like I can't
And
wear these.
When did she get it in her brain that that's what you wanted?
I don't know.
Or does it matter?
It doesn't matter.
She just wanted to get it for
yeah.
you. Yeah.
But now it's like we get stuff like she'll get me a Sudoku book. We talked about this off mic.
Right.
And I'm thinking, oh, this is the best gift ever.
Yeah.
So there was a Christmas right before I moved to LA, Christmas 2018.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, they all knew I was gonna leave like a few days after that. My sister, we get kind of creative now with our gifts because we're older. And so my sister had like a little mini pizza box wrapped up. And I opened it, and inside was like 12 $1 bills, like in the shape of like a clock.
Yeah.
And like pennies for the pepperoni.
Yeah.
And to me, that was like one of the best gifts I've ever got because
That's
of
cool.
the creativity that went in it.
Right.
Right? It's not about how much you spend on my gift. And like I said, now we don't even really do gifts. It's more about, we'll get gifts for my niece because she's 13.
Yeah.
So like this year, I'm just going to give her $100 because she's at the age where it's like money kind of rules everything for her versus gifts. But she's a big gamer, so and rather than just ask her what game she wants and get it, it's not much of a surprise because she kind of expects it. I'll give her the cash and let her buy whatever 13-year-olds are into.
Sure.
So
When do you, like we just talked about when traditions begin in the year,
Mm-hmm.
when do you start watching Christmas movies? Is it like the week of Thanksgiving, or is it like after Thanksgiving, or?
it's usually right around Thanksgiving,
Yeah,
yeah. Because
same.
they start airing a lot of them around
That's
that
true.
time of the year.
That's true.
And that's kind of what gets me into it. It also helps if it's cold out.
Yeah.
Like there's been so many Christmases in Texas where I'm in basketball shorts and a t-shirt.
And there's a Christmas movie on.
Yeah.
And you're like, I'm not feeling it.
No, not at all.
Yeah. Well, this movie came out in 1990. Home Alone came out in 1990.
30th anniversary this year.
This is the 30th anniversary. So you would have been.
I was 10.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
So, and your sister's younger than you?
And so she was 6.
So, did you guys see this in the theaters?
No, I think we actually purchased the VHS
Okay.
in 91.
Okay.
And that's the first time we saw it.
I don't remember seeing this in the theaters. I remember seeing the second one in the theaters, but I don't remember this one.
Right.
I must have been. I would have been 9. Because
What are your thoughts on the sequel?
I really enjoy the sequel.
Okay.
It's close enough to the original material that it's fun to watch again.
Yeah.
But it's different enough that because it's a different house.
Yeah.
And you know, like an old building and stuff. So the parameters changed just enough to make the sequel.
Well, I mean, this one, the second one is in New York, so we have this open, area to explore. And there's a homeless woman with not doves, I think, or not doves, but
pigeons.
Pigeons, yeah.
Yeah, she's the pigeon lady.
Yeah.
Well, the first one I watch, and it was really fun to watch with my son for the first time. I remember when we did that like several years ago, and showed him that for the first time.
He's 8 now, right?
He's 9.
Okay, so he's a year older than Kevin is in this movie because Kevin's 8.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. He just turned 9 in August.
Okay.
And so he's similar age. In fact, last year, in the movie, he says how old he is because the cashier asks him, I think.
Ma'am, I'm almost 11 years old.
And so
he lies about it.
We're watching this last year, and he says that he's 8, and Remy was like, oh, I'm 8.
Yeah.
You know, like it was really fun for him to like make that connection.
Right. So I have a question then. With Kevin in this film is 8, and at the time your son Remy was 8. Shout out to Remy, by the way.
Yep.
Looking at how you obviously you know your son, and he's 8, and we watched Kevin operate in this film at 8 years old. Is that believable? The stuff that Kevin does in this film from an 8-year-old?
Absolutely not.
Okay, I didn't think so. I wanted to double check. I didn't think so.
And that's what's fun about it because he's very creative in his young age.
Yeah.
In this movie, he's coming up with these ideas and these like plots and all this stuff that has to happen to make this other thing happen.
Yeah.
You know, chain of events that he's creating.
Have you heard the rumor that Kevin grows up to be Jigsaw from the Saw franchise?
Oh my gosh, no.
It's a cool rumor. Obviously, it's not true.
Yeah.
It hasn't been.
Rumor or theory?
Well, it's a theory.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, it's a theory.
That's
it's
fine.
different.
Yeah.
But it's a cool theory to read.
Yeah.
And by the way, can we talk about how Macaulay Culkin aged ugly?
Oh man, he did not age well.
Not at all.
Yep.
I think he's like 38, so he's like right around our age.
Yep.
But I remember seeing him maybe a decade ago. And of course, at that point, he was really heavy into drugs. He's clean now. He actually looks a lot better now
Yeah, he looks
than he
better
did
now,
about
yeah.
10 years ago.
Yeah.
And he dated Mila Kunis for a little while.
Did he?
Look at this guy.
He kind of disappeared off of entertainment news for a long time.
He did.
He wasn't really in anything, any movies or anything for a long time. In fact, I don't even know if he's still acting anymore. He did something this year because of quarantine, and this is a fun movie to talk about during quarantine and during COVID.
Yeah.
You know, even though a lot of the quarantine stuff has loosened up lately,
Right.
but we've all been home this whole year.
That's true.
You know, and so we're not necessarily alone,
Yeah.
but we've all been home, and so it's fun to,
Yeah, it is.
to think about. I love this movie,
Same. I do too.
and you and I watched it last night.
Yeah.
And we kind of made ourselves not talk about the things we wanted to like discuss
And it was
while
tough,
watching
though.
it.
It was tough.
It was fun. It was fun at the same time because like we've seen it so many times. We were kind of like Mystery Science Theater, kind of like making comments like that in that vein.
Like the first 5 minutes, like I'm quoting every word.
Yeah.
And then eventually I'm like, let me stop. I don't want to annoy you. So let me just chill.
Well, but it was fine because I was doing the same thing.
Yeah. And I told you even last night that my sister and I have seen it so many times that we have like a quota who can quote more of the film than the other.
It's a competition.
It is.
Right?
Yeah.
That's cool.
So it's definitely I think it's my all-time favorite Christmas movie.
So growing up after this movie released, and you said you bought the VHS.
Yeah.
This is something that you and your sister would sit down and watch.
We would watch it. I mean, not just during Christmas, but all the time because I think maybe one of the first VHS tapes we've ever had. Like that for us, right?
That's cool. Yeah.
And we would watch that thing constantly,
That's
over
cool.
and over,
Yeah.
all year long. So.
Man. So what other Christmas traditions do you have?
I think maybe they're not more traditions, but like I start gearing up for asking what they want for Christmas, what my family wants for Christmas around this time of the year. So about 5-6 weeks
Thanksgiving?
before Christmas, yeah.
Yep.
Thanksgiving is in about 2 weeks. So I'll start asking, preparing for, setting aside a certain amount of money because I want to spend this much for them. I'll like designate.
Right.
Not that, one gift needs to be more expensive or less than the other, but I'll ask them early enough so that they have time to prepare a list, and they'll send me the list, and they can say, well, pick anything you want off this list, and that way, they'll say, don't get everything on the list, but whatever you want, I'm good with. Now my mom, she'll always say, "Oh, just don't get me anything." We talked about this earlier about mothers being selfless.
Yeah.
My mom is like, "Oh yeah, don't just get me an 8-pack of soap." For real, this is like how my mom is.
So she wants more practical gifts.
Yeah.
Because she can't think of. Is it because she can't think of anything she wants from you, or is it because she like thinks that she doesn't deserve something like
My mom
fancy
just
or
doesn't need or want much.
Yeah.
She's never been like that.
Yeah.
Never wanted to want any luxuries or need anything. She's always felt like she's had enough. If she has us there, she feels like she has enough. And so as I've gotten older, I've kind of taken that psychology as well, where
Yeah,
I
right.
don't ask for much either.
Man, I haven't asked for gifts in years.
No, neither have I.
And the older I get, the less I want to do that.
Yeah.
And like, if you think you see something that you think that I would want, just go. I'll appreciate it when, I'll like it.
Right.
So I don't really care.
I get more joy now out of just watching my niece open her gifts.
Yeah.
Because it's like a reflection of how I was at her age, asking for stuff. You give your parents the wish list of things you want, and watching her open gifts. It's cool to see like that tradition kind of continues or lives on through her. So.
Yeah. Well, this is another John Hughes written and produced movie. He
Yep.
didn't direct it, which is interesting to me because he typically he writes and directs, but he let Christopher Columbus direct this.
Who discovered America?
He, I think it's a different one.
Oh.
However, it's funny you say that because his production company is called 1492 Pictures,
Yeah.
which is cool. Christopher Columbus has done several movies. Let's talk about his directorial journey.
So he's done a lot of movies that I love. He's done, obviously, like you said, Home Alone,
Yep.
Mrs. Doubtfire, the first 2 Harry Potter movies. We talked about this yesterday, the Harry Potter films. I haven't seen the first one, but he's done the first 2. He directed the first Percy Jackson, and the last movie he directed was this movie called Pixels.
Which is a fun movie.
Yeah, yeah. And that was, I think, 2015. He hasn't directed anything since.
That's not true. He
I lied.
directed The Christmas Chronicles 2, which is going to be released
Okay,
very
so the last thing
soon.
he directed was Pixels then. Because I saw that, I was like, I'm not counting that.
That's true.
Have you
Okay.
seen that?
The first one was really fun. Came out last year.
Oh, really? Okay.
Uh-huh. It's
Okay.
why is my brain not working? Why does this happen to me?
No, it's because the cast is trash. You don't want to admit it.
No, it's Kurt Russell and his wife.
Goldie?
Yeah, Goldie Hawn. That's who
Okay.
stars in it.
Okay.
And it's a fun Christmas adventure movie.
So here's the thing. So I have my classic
course.
Christmas movies, and I'm really partial to that list.
Yep.
And I don't want any outside movies to protrude into that group.
Yep.
So anything that's new that comes out, I usually try to shy away from.
It's interesting that John Hughes chose Chris Columbus to direct this movie because he hadn't really done much directing-wise before Home Alone came
No.
out. There's a movie called The Heartbreak Hotel in '88, which is stars David Keith. I've never heard of this movie.
I live in the Heartbreak Hotel.
Gosh. You're in a different mood today. He did Adventures in Babysitting in '87.
Okay, I've
which
heard
is
of
a
that.
pretty big movie.
Yeah.
So for him to do Home Alone, after Home Alone, he kind of blew up. He did Home Alone 2 a couple years later. There was a one-off in between there. Mrs. Doubtfire,
Yeah.
which is huge, 9 months, which is a big movie.
Is that with Hugh Grant?
Yeah, Hugh Grant.
I want to stab him so bad.
You want to stab?
I hate Hugh Grant.
Why do you hate Hugh Grant? What has he done to you?
Bad movies.
Wow. Including The Gentleman?
Haven't seen it. But I think I would like it because it's a Guy Ritchie. Shut up. We
Yeah.
know.
Didn't have to say anything. I just looked at you. Bicentennial Man? What are your thoughts on that?
I've never seen that. That's Robin Williams, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I've never
He
seen it.
plays a robot.
Yeah.
The early 2000s, he goes in to do the Harry Potters. My mic cut out.
Oh.
He does Rent.
Oh,
So
yeah.
the Broadway to the screen adaptation. I Love You, Beth Cooper, which is like a romantic comedy
Like
type
a-
weird
yeah.
thing. Percy Jackson. Pixels 2015. There's a big gap between Percy Jackson and Pixels, 5-year gap. And then he's got some movies coming. But he's a pretty good director. I really liked what he did with Home Alone.
Yeah.
I think that even though the John Hughes didn't direct it, I think Christopher Columbus did a really good job with John Hughes' script.
Capturing the essence of what, John Hughes would have done had he directed.
Right.
Absolutely.
And I don't know why John Hughes didn't direct. Do you know why?
I actually don't.
I don't know if there's any trivia about this, but typically it's interesting that, he does usually direct what he writes.
Yeah.
And this is an instance when he didn't.
Well, John Hughes, so Home Alone comes out in 1990, and John Hughes has one of the most epic runs of a writer I've ever seen. From 83 to 93, he writes Mr. Mom with Michael Keaton.
Great
which
movie.
Is what puts Michael Keaton on the map.
Yep.
National Lampoon's Vacation, 16 Candles, The Breakfast Club, European Vacation, Weird Science, Pretty in Pink. Oh, I have Chicken Scratch.
Can't read your own notes?
No. And Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, The Great Outdoors, Uncle Buck, Christmas Vacation, Home Alone 1 and 2, and Dennis the Menace, all in 10 years.
Man.
So this guy's had an epic
He was just,
run.
yeah.
Ripping them off, man.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
So, as a writer, how do you approach this movie?
You know what? I just kind of take it for what it is. Because this is one of those movies, and I have movies like this where I kind of take my film industry lenses off and just look at it from just a general viewer standpoint.
I absolutely do the same thing.
Yeah. This is one movie I don't try to break down how they do this
Sure.
or how they do that, and I don't like this line, da-da-da.
It's fun that you and I have seen this movie so many times, right? Over the years, we've watched it every year.
Yeah.
And we saw things last night that we didn't necessarily remember seeing before,
Yeah.
or just didn't focus on before. For instance, when the wind was blowing, and
Yeah.
the
Before
the lightning,
when the storm hits, yeah.
or a branch gets blown off and hits the power line.
Right.
Right before that happens, we see this plastic Santa
Just blowing down the street.
flying down the street, and I've honestly never focused on that before.
Same, neither have I.
And
And I think that's a testament to, and I mentioned this last night when we watched it.
Yep.
I like watching some of these movies that we review with you because you do catch things. It's like you're more attentive.
In the background,
Yeah.
or details on, for instance, the name of the van that they're driving is called OK Plumbing.
Right. Yeah. Never paid
Like
attention to that before.
OHKAY Plumbing.
Yeah.
Never focused on that before. I thought it was really funny.
Yeah.
Yep.
So one interesting tidbit about the McAllister house. So in the scene where Marv and Harry first pull up, and Harry's bragging about how he knows the time when all the houses lights are going to come on, because those are the houses that people are out of the house for the holidays. He says 671 from the McAllister house, and looking up, that's actually the address for that house, 671.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, and there's some really cool trivia about the interior of the house, how not everything in that house is actually in the specific house.
No, so the exterior, this is one of those movie tricks where they shoot the exterior.
Yeah.
And they get all those exterior shots done, which
Right.
there's several. And then they built the interior of this house inside of a gymnasium.
Yeah, in an old school, a high school.
In an old high school.
Yeah.
And they, so all the scenes that are for instance, there's a moment last night when you literally go, how do you think they got that shot? And I was like, well, there's probably a hole in the ceiling, or there's no ceiling, or something.
Yeah.
It was a up down shot from the perspective of the ceiling.
Yeah.
And there was a item on the top shelf that Kevin McAllister wants to get, and he climbs up, and the shelves fall down. Right.
Yeah.
But before that, there's that shot that shows that something there's a box of money.
So the only shots inside the actual house are the main staircase, the attic, basement, and most of the first floor, landing area.
Yeah.
In front of the stairs.
Right.
But then everything else, like you said, is shot. They built this soundstage at this old high school.
Which is so cool.
Yeah, and they actually talk about that in that documentary you asked me about.
The Movies That Made Us on Netflix
yeah.
covers this movie,
Right.
covers Die Hard, some other movies. And I didn't know that until I saw that documentary.
Same.
So I've seen this movie a million times, and then to learn more about it years later, it was really fun.
Right.
So let's talk about 1990.
So some really fun movies that came out that year, some that I really enjoy. And I didn't realize until I went through the list. So in 1990, you've got Ghost.
Oh, man.
Patrick Swayze and Demi Moore.
That's a big movie.
It's a big movie. Dances with Wolves, which I didn't like because it was too long.
It's a period piece. It's,
Also that.
It's really slow and long.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty Women, which is a classic movie.
Okay, yeah.
I kind of enjoy that one.
Wait, hold on. Pretty Woman?
Yeah.
You said Pretty Women.
because I wrote Pretty Women.
Yep.
My bad.
Pretty Woman with
Julia Roberts
Julia
and Richard Gere. I
Yeah.
want to stab him too. Him and Hugh Grant.
Man, you
They-
are.
because they play like those type of characters.
Yeah. It's weird how specific you are with what you want to do to them.
You know
I
why?
wanna stab them.
Because when you stab somebody, it's like close and intimate. You know.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's from a movie too. I don't remember which one it was.
Interesting. Okay.
Anyway.
What else?
Let me stop incriminating myself on air real quick. The original TMNT.
Oh my gosh,
Teenage
that was
Mutant Ninja
1990.
Turtles.
Yes.
Yeah. And I think, did I hear correctly? They're gonna re-release that.
No, they're making, well, maybe.
Okay.
But they're making a direct sequel. The writer wants to make a direct sequel to
The original.
the original movie.
Okay.
Right.
Wow, that would be interesting.
Which is very similar to what's happening with Ghostbusters next summer.
Yes.
It's a direct,
Hopefully next summer.
sequel to Ghostbusters 2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Hunt for Red October. Sean Connery,
Big.
Alec Baldwin.
Yep. Jack Ryan.
Yes. Total Recall. The original Total Recall with Arnold
Yeah.
Schwarzenegger.
Yep.
We talked about this before. I think it was during Beetlejuice with Jeff. Dick Tracy came out that year.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Kindergarten Cop, one of my favorites.
Man,
Just watched that 2 weekends ago with my sister and brother-in-law,
what a great movie.
and we still laugh at the same stuff. It's another
Absolutely.
rewatchable for us.
Yeah, that's a good movie.
Back to the Future 3, my least favorite of the trilogy.
Okay, yeah.
Flatliners, have you seen Flatliners?
Oh, yeah.
That's one of my favorites.
Really good.
I'd love
Kevin
to cover that one
Bacon.
too.
Who else is in that?
Well, Julia Roberts, you've got the other Baldwin brother, not Alec, but William Baldwin.
William Baldwin. Yep.
Kiefer Sutherland, Kevin Bacon.
Yep.
They're all in that.
That's a good movie. They remade that.
A few years
recently,
ago
yeah.
with Ellen Page.
Ellen Page, yeah.
It was a different take, so it was different.
I didn't watch it because I didn't think it looked like a solid
I mean, it didn't.
movie.
But there's a random like Kiefer Sutherland cameo in it.
Is
He's
there?
actually it's the same character.
That's interesting.
Yeah, so that was
it's-
kind of cool.
So it's like years later, and he's older, and
Yeah, he's like a doctor now, a professor
Interesting.
now.
Okay.
Yeah, and we've got Misery.
oh, Misery. Wow.
It's a miserable film.
Wow.
But it's really good. Stephen King.
Yeah, the story's really interesting.
Yeah.
I don't like the movie, but
Same.
yeah,
And Edward Scissorhands.
another Tim Burton movie.
Yeah, so
Interesting.
1990s just knocked him out the park.
Yeah,
man.
really good movies in that time.
This is one of the first movies that we've covered that had a small budget and made a ton of money. The budget was $18 million and made $476 million.
Ah, man, just
Maybe one of the earliest like box office smashes we've ever had.
Yep.
Up until that point.
Yep.
It's a lot of money.
a lot of money.
So
We were talking last night how it's interesting to see Joe Pesci in the role that he was in.
yes.
Because we'd normally seen him, we had normally seen him in violent mob movies.
yeah, Goodfellas,
Right.
Casino.
My Cousin Vinny, which
Yeah.
is kind of a comedy.
But he's a mafia guy in that.
So yeah, exactly. But so him being cast in this role is very interesting. And there's a piece of trivia that I was reading last night that says Joe Pesci deliberately avoided Macaulay Culkin on set because he wanted Culkin to think he was mean.
Oh, that's clever.
It is clever.
And I've heard of other like stories similar to that in other productions where certain cast members don't congregate together in between shoots
Offset,
to
yeah.
keep the tension in the scene.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, because De Niro, I'm sorry, not De Niro, because Pesci in his other mob movies, he's killing people left and right.
Absolutely, yeah.
He's like the little guy with the anger problem.
Yep.
There's a scene in Goodfellas where he kills the guy with the pencil at the bar.
Yep.
And I'm thinking, man, I was like, I hope I never turn into that because I'm the short guy. And I had to work on my anger because I saw that scene. I
Yeah.
said, that can't be me.
He also is in one of my favorite movies, Lethal Weapon 3. His role in that movie is really
As
funny.
Leo? Yeah.
And it's way more of a comedy role for him.
Yeah.
And I really enjoy his portrayal of that
Well, his
character.
character in that movie is like a fresh injection into that franchise.
Yep.
So it kept it from going stale.
Exactly. And added more comic relief.
Yeah.
Them dealing with him. And
Because he annoys
he's like a bumbling idiot.
Yeah.
He's like a private detective. And he's not good at his job.
At all.
And it's really interesting.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the cast of Home Alone.
So obviously we've got Macaulay Culkin as the star. I think before this, his biggest role was just Uncle Buck.
Yeah, he was really young in Uncle Buck.
Yeah.
And what a great movie.
Love it.
John Candy,
Love it.
another John Hughes movie.
Yep.
And that's we talked about this. We talk about this frequently when we have directors or producers or writers that choose people to work with over and over. Like it's called a talent pool.
Talent pool, yeah.
And so John Hughes definitely did that in a lot of his movies with John Candy, with other actors that he chose, like in Ferris Bueller and Planes, Trains, and all these different people.
You talk about John Candy in this cast. So he's only in like 2 or 3 scenes.
Very small role, yeah.
Now, and that's because he only had 1 day to actually shoot in this film.
Mm-hmm.
All of his scenes in this film took 23 hours to shoot.
Wow.
He only accepted $414 for the role.
Really?
But in return, John Hughes let him improvise all of his dialogue.
Man.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I love when John Hughes does that.
So improv is a recurring theme on pretty much every movie we've covered.
A lot of his movies. Yes, you're right.
Yeah.
So a lot of things we've covered, improv is a big deal. Obviously, it's important to me, but I love it whenever I find directors that do that.
Yeah.
Because it's so fun. Because there's the potential to have some comedy gold come out of improvisation.
Yeah. Now, I have a theory also about John Candy's character Gus in this movie. So we're talking about John Hughes again. A few weeks ago, we talked about Planes, Trains, and Automobiles,
Yep.
which is a John Hughes vehicle, and that's got Steve Martin and John Candy. Now, in that movie, John Candy's also on the road. He's a traveling shower curtain salesman, and in this movie, he's a traveling musician. And so I have a theory that this is Del Griffith changed his name and picked up a new career and is much more successful. He's found a way to be
Positive.
and meet friends and connect
Yep.
with them.
Yep.
And so this is still the same character.
Interesting.
It connects the universe.
Yeah. That's cool. His role is really funny, and his interaction with Catherine O'Hara, which he has a past with her because they did SCTV together.
Okay.
And so they have already improvised together before, which is probably why John Hughes felt comfortable
Right.
with allowing that to happen.
Yeah.
But his role, it's a feel-good role, man. He's so selfless and happy and just wants to help.
Yeah.
And obviously does. I mean, he helps her and puts her in the van or in the budget
The
truck.
budget rental vehicles, how they travel, yeah.
Yeah, it's really funny.
Because they're a part of it's a polka band,
Yep.
and where you were saying, I misinterpreted what you said last night. You were saying that these are all songs. He's naming off songs.
He starts rattling off names of songs
Yeah.
because he expected her to know who he was.
Right.
Because like she's from Chicago, he's from Chicago or a neighboring city.
Yeah.
And they're really big in like Sheboygan,
Yeah.
which is a kind of a northern Chicago, suburb of Chicago.
Right.
And they play this polka music, and he starts rattling off these names of polka songs, which I think he just came up with on the spot.
Had to be, yeah.
Because he's like, like Kiss Me Polka. He starts naming off these songs.
And every song has like polka in the title.
And she goes, "Oh, these are songs."
Yeah.
And he's like, "Oh, okay, you don't know who I am."
Right.
It's really funny. I love that whole.
Because he goes off on that whole rant, and then eventually she's like, "I'm sorry, but did you say you could help me?" And then
Yeah.
he's like, "Oh yeah, let me get back to that."
He's like, "I'm rambling."
Yeah.
Yeah. So Macaulay Culkin, Joe Pesci, John Candy, Daniel Stern, which he had been in some things before Home Alone that were pretty big. Did you ever see City Slickers?
I love City Slickers.
City Slickers is a really funny movie.
Yeah.
That's kind of his top. That's what he's known for most, next to Home Alone.
So the Joe Pesci role for Harry was written and offered to Robert De Niro and John Lovitz. They're both considered for the role of Harry, both turned it down, and that's when Pesci accepted. So Pesci, to me, was perfect for the role, but he actually was the third guy to get the offer.
Imagine De Niro in that role.
Too serious, I think.
And imagine John Lovitz in that role.
Too comedic.
So Joe Pesci was like the perfect balance
Yeah.
of evil or mob-ish
Yeah,
and funny.
right. This would be like whatever character he's played in, like the other mob movies. This would be like his origin story leading up to it. He gets caught at the end and he gets out of jail. He's like a hardened criminal now.
Yeah, this is
he
how
wears
he-
three-piece suits and kills guys in a bar with a pencil.
With class.
With class, yeah. No more wet bandits. It's over.
Yep. All right, so Daniel Stern, John Hurd, who plays Kevin McAllister's dad. He was in Big,
Okay.
which is
Oh.
he was kind of like this asshole character.
Yeah.
That who wants to be with the girl that
Tom Hanks.
Tom Hanks'
yeah.
character gets with.
He kind of gives me that same vibe in this movie, even as the father.
He's in a movie that I really love called Awakenings.
Okay.
Have you ever seen it?
I've never heard of it.
Robin Williams, Robert De Niro, Julie Kavner from Simpsons
Oh,
fame, John Hurd. Really, really good movie about this hospital that does this like therapy on people that have been catatonic. Like something happens to them and makes them catatonic. And there's this new drug that kind of revives them, but it doesn't last long. And De Niro is one of the people that is catatonic.
Oh, okay.
And comes out, and Robin Williams plays a doctor,
Yeah.
and De Niro plays a patient.
Okay.
And it's fantastic. And it was directed by Penny Marshall.
Oh, really?
So same director of As Big
Yeah.
and League of Their Own.
I'll have to check this out. I've never heard of it.
Bro, it came out in 1990, so the same year
Okay.
as this movie.
Yeah.
So Catherine O'Hara, we talked to her briefly before. She was in Beetlejuice. She's been in Best in Show. A lot of those movies, for your consideration, like A Mighty Wind, all that. There's a certain group of people that were in all those movies together.
Right.
She was one of them. She was on SCTV, so back in the pre-Saturday Night Live days.
She does a really good job, I noticed, in this movie, and then after watching Beetlejuice recently for the first time, at being like panicked, agitated, like I'm in a rush, I gotta get this done right now kind of energy. She does a really good job at that.
Yep. What about Uncle Frank? We talked about this last night.
Yeah, so I guess
What
movies
are
like,
your feelings towards Uncle Frank?
man, I don't like him. I really don't.
He's such a jerk.
He is.
And he's so selfish, and he just wants.
So speaking of jerks, so one of my favorite scenes is the pizza dinner scene.
Yeah.
And
When the milk is spilled.
yeah, Kevin's upset because Buzz ate all the cheese pizza and
Yeah,
he
Buzz is-
attacks him.
Buzz is
'cause
being
he's
a jerk.
Yeah, antagonizing him. And Kevin charges at him, and Buzz knocks over milk all over the passports and the countertop. That's how Kevin's passport gets thrown away. And it ruins everyone's dinner for whatever reason.
Right.
And everybody's just kind of staring at him. You've got the view of Kevin looking at everybody panning around. Everyone's looking at him with these evil looks.
Really funny part where his little brother, Kieran.
What's his cousin?
Well,
in real life.
in the movie, his name is Fuller.
Yeah.
And he gets pushed against the wall.
Yeah.
In the chair whenever Frank gets up. It's really funny.
And Kevin, and right after that, Uncle Frank jumps up and says, "Look what you did, you little jerk."
Which is one of my favorite lines.
It is.
Because it's just a funny line. And like,
funny.
how dare you say that to a little kid?
Right.
Like, I would never say that to a little kid.
Yeah, and I always wondered, even as a kid seeing this, why Kevin's parents didn't like step up.
Yeah, like there's not a lot of discipline other than putting him in his room because he made such a big scene at dinner, the night before the trip. They were already stressed out. There were already a lot of things going on.
Right.
And has an attitude issue. And, so the only discipline that he gets is that she puts him in his room.
Go to bed, that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I would have been already, if Remy did something like this, man, he wouldn't have.
Yeah.
Because I would have taught him how to be better than this.
Right.
I would like to think that, but I don't think he would do something like this.
Well, let me ask you this: growing up, did you ever receive whoopings as a kid?
Oh yes.
Okay, so I did too. So
Yes.
in our household, if that happened, automatic whooping
Oh yeah.
from mom and maybe dad too.
Yeah. Dude, right there in front of everybody.
In front of everybody. Yeah.
That's how it would have been handled.
100%.
And so, because of that, I wouldn't even have thought about doing something.
No,
like
there's no
this,
way.
Being like a little jerk like
Yeah.
this.
Now, growing up, so Kevin, this film's 8, and around 8 years old, I had a cousin who was basically this Kevin.
Really?
He was like the troublemaker. He
Man.
stayed in trouble, and the rest of the family always knew, oh, well, there he goes again, getting in trouble. He's like the bad kid.
Yep.
Kind of rambunctious.
Well, let's talk about parenting in this because Buzz is a jerk too.
Yeah, he is.
So the discipline that they're not really receiving a lot of discipline from the parents.
No, not at all.
There's so many kids who do we know how big the immediate family is?
So I think the immediate family has, so it's Kevin's parents, Kevin, Buzz. He's got a brother.
Fuller's
and
a cousin.
Fuller's a cousin, so you've got a brother, the redheaded kid, I can't remember his name.
Oh yeah, the guy from Pete and Pete.
Yeah, and then the girl that speaks French. Kevin, you're with the French call.
the blonde girl.
Les Incompetents.
Yeah.
So I think there's 7 total.
Okay.
And you've got Frank, Uncle Frank and his wife.
And they have kids.
Right. And then, but I don't know who.
Belongs to.
Yeah,
right.
There's so many. I think it ends up being like 15 to 20
There's
people.
so many. Yeah, there's
overall.
so many kids.
Yeah.
Which just I kind of get stressed out thinking about filming this family scene because there's so many characters on screen.
Well, last night we're watching the film. I'm talking about the logistics of filming the initial airport scene
Yep.
when they're rushing to catch the plane. Like, how do you film that when an airport is really full of people?
Yep.
You can't control that many extras. You can't, there's too much going on in the airport.
Yep.
Airports don't close during the day. So I always wondered, that had to be a nightmare to film, like you said, that many cast members.
Right.
And in a public place.
Right.
Now, I do have an issue with what happens the next morning.
Okay.
So they realize, the power went out the night before. They realize they wake up late. And she looks at her clock, which is just blinking 12 because the power went out, checks her watch, and frantically jumps out of bed. And she says, "Peter!" And he jumps out of bed too. And
Yeah.
immediately, the way he jumps out of bed, you pointed out to me.
It's so funny.
It's really funny.
He jumps out of bed, straightens his pajamas and turns around,
Yeah.
puts his hand on the bed.
It's hunched over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he immediately was in go mode.
Yeah. So there's a point later on in that same scene where they're all rushing to get ready.
Yep.
And she asked him, she said, "Peter, do you have the tickets? Where are the tickets?" And he said, "Yeah, I put them in the microwave to dry
Yeah.
the next day."
Yeah.
But if they were soured by milk the night before, wouldn't you have done that the night before instead of waiting until the morning?
Well, I guess he put them in the microwave and turned them on and let it dry them.
But shouldn't they have been dried from overnight? Or shouldn't they have done that
Just-
the night it happened
Yeah.
instead of waiting until the next morning?
Well, I think what he's saying is that he put them in the night before.
Okay. See, I thought.
And turned the microwave on, let them get dry, and then they're just still in there.
Oh, okay. See, I thought I heard him say, "I just put them in the microwave."
Oh, okay. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's what he said. I don't know.
Can't fact check it now. It's too late.
Yeah, right.
We'll never watch this again. But that is my favorite scene, the opening scene.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of opening scenes, because it kind of sets.
Of course.
You know.
A lot of tone is set
Yeah.
for the rest of the movie.
And you prefer to them as hooks. You
Yeah.
use that word often.
Sure. It's like a hook.
Yeah. But it's my favorite scene because there's a million people in the house. There's people in every room, up and down stairs,
Mm-hmm.
walking across. And you got Joe Pesci in this cop outfit that he somehow has. And he's just standing in there. And when you first see this, you don't know why he's there.
Right.
He's trying to get someone's attention.
Right. And nobody can, the recurring bit is like, "Hey, little girl, do you live here? Are your parents home?"
Yeah.
She's like, "Yes." And he's like, "Oh, good." But they don't live here.
Yeah,
or whatever.
they're in Paris or they're in France, yeah.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Sure, it's a house full of kids, no parents, probably a fancy orphanage."
Yeah. Yeah. And then the pizza guy shows up and they're both standing in the doorway for a long time.
Yeah.
And he gets the pizza guy. Imagine pizzas being that cheap. Do you remember how much it was for how many pizzas did they have? 10?
He's like, "It's 10 pieces, that's $12.
It's like 100. It's like 122.50.
Yeah.
Was the total.
So again, I'll talk about one of my favorite scenes is the opening scene, because it highlights the house is lit up, it's the exterior, it's establishing shot, and then it cuts to the interior, and there's just chaos all over the place because everyone's packing and getting ready to go on this trip. And my first question is, why is everybody packing for this big trip the night before you leave? I feel like you would, or maybe this is just me,
Yeah.
but I would have packed at least 2 or 3 days before the night of, so that way you can have that night to relax,
Right.
kind of go through your checklist. Okay, did I grab everything? Am I prepared for this trip tomorrow? And on top of that, you've got 15 to 20 people flying to Paris, to France.
Right.
What do these parents do for a living? I think we have an idea of what Catherine, no, that's her actor's name. We have an idea what the mother does. She's like a seamstress. Just peppered throughout the house, we see a sewing kit, we see mannequins and clothing and garments all over the house, especially in the attic and the basement.
Right.
But I don't think that's a really profitable career. I mean, it's all in the basement, so it looks like it hasn't been used in a while.
Yeah.
But for the 1990s, she's dressed in a nice little business.
Yeah. And the
casual.
house is gigantic.
Yeah, it's huge. And we don't know what Peter does, though.
Yeah, and this is a question that's been brought up several times with people talking about this movie.
Mm-hmm.
How are they living in a house that big in Chicago?
Yeah.
What kind of money did Peter make?
Right.
We have no idea what kind of job he has.
It's never hinted at what he does for
Yeah,
work,
right.
or Frank or his wife, for that matter, either.
True.
But they managed to get all these people together in this house the night before. They're packing, and it's just a lot of energy in the house. So I love that scene. And they're rushing to the airport, and he says, "Hold the plane." Which, if the plane's gone, buddy, the plane's gone.
Yeah.
Could you imagine if the plane was gone? They were 10 minutes later than that. They have to go back home. This movie would never have happened.
Man. Yeah.
Would have been a different movie.
Yep.
I wouldn't mind seeing that because Kevin wakes up and everybody's gone.
Yep.
So here's a big problem I have. Fuller slept in the bed with Kevin, because there's that earlier scene where he says, I don't want to sleep in the bed with Fuller. He'll wet the bed. He'll pee all over me. I know it.
But didn't his mom say that we'll put Fuller somewhere else?
And she never says that.
Yeah, she did.
Did she?
Yes.
I don't think so.
Okay. In the part wherever they open the door to the attic and
Yeah.
you see the stairs,
Yeah.
which you commented on, because you're like, it's not a pull-down ladder, it's actual stairs.
It's actual
that
stairs to
go
the
up to
attic,
the
which
third
I've
floor.
never seen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and he goes, I'm sorry.
He's trying to get out of it.
He's trying to like negotiate,
Right.
right? And he goes, I don't, like, she said Fuller's going to be up in a little bit.
Yeah.
And he goes, I don't want Fuller to sleep with me. He's going to wet bed. She goes, okay, we'll figure out somewhere else to put Fuller.
Oh, she does kind of throw that one line off.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, I've heard that line, but
He
I
slept
always
by himself.
I always dismiss that line.
Yeah. So he sleeps up in that upper
Okay.
room all by himself.
Well, that negates my whole argument that I was going to make,
Okay.
that they shouldn't have forgotten him because Fuller should have been up there. But okay.
I mean, they shouldn't have forgotten him at all. Like,
Well,
if
yeah.
I would have been the parent that made sure that all the kids, I saw their faces in the vehicle.
Right.
I know that they're there. I wouldn't have delegated it to the oldest cousin.
Yeah.
And made her count or whatever. Because, there's the kid the neighborhood kid who climbs into the van.
Yeah.
And she counts him from behind. She
Because
didn't
he's in the van.
He's in the van. So she touches his head,
Counting,
his hat.
yeah.
And he's talking to himself or looking in the bags or
Right.
whatever and not paying attention.
Yeah.
And she's not paying attention because she's just trying to get the job done and count the kids.
Mm-hmm.
And so he gets counted. And so that's how they left. That's
Right.
ultimately the reason why they left.
But like
Kevin.
you said, you would never delegate that to
No,
another
that's
one of
bad
the cousins.
parenting.
And we talked about that a second ago. How let's talk about the bad parenting. That's another one ideal bad parenting moment.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You need to know where your kids are.
Right.
Right? And there was such a heavy conversation between her and her son the night before. So mom and Kevin McAllister are having this conversation.
Yeah.
That would be still heavy on her mind the next morning.
Right.
Right?
It should be.
So she would know where he is and why he's there.
Yeah.
And probably still have feelings about it. And if I was in her shoes,
Mm-hmm.
the first thing I would do, even though we woke up in a frantic, would be go check on Kevin.
Yeah.
Make sure, before we go on this trip, let's hash this out.
Yeah.
Let's make sure our attitudes are okay before we go, right?
So
if possible.
That's something that seems much more realistic. Because I've
Level-headed.
seen uncles and aunts talking to my cousin who was just in trouble, and they're like, give them that conversation,
Yeah.
okay, now we dealt with this, it's over.
Yeah.
We're not gonna have any more problems, are we? And then you're talking it
Sure.
out.
Yeah. So ultimately that's the reason why Kevin gets left, right?
Yeah,
Because there's
okay.
just kind of a bad parenting choice.
Yeah.
Let's let our kid, let our oldest cousin count the kids, and let's get on the road.
Yeah.
So if to answer my question earlier about how much 10 pizzas would cost right now, so I chose Domino's, I chose pepperoni, and it'd be like $170.
Wow.
So 120, 250 in 1990 climbed up to almost $200 with delivery
It's
fees
insane.
and taxes and stuff.
And you got a tip.
And tip.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But apparently he got a nice tip. We have no idea.
Yeah, we don't know
but
what it is, but
he says, he's like, oh, nice tip, thanks a lot.
Yep. So we got to talk about the recurring bit of the
I know where you're going with this.
The little statue that gets
Yeah.
hit over and over, really all throughout the movie. I think it happens 3 times. Because the little Nero's guy does it first.
Yeah, he does it twice in the movie.
We don't see it being hit next. We see the guy picking it up off the ground
The
because
shuttle driver?
obviously it was hit.
Yeah.
And then the little Nero's guy comes again
Yes.
later in the movie and he hits it. So it got hit 3 times.
Right.
Really,
Would that apply to the rule of 3 in a movie?
in comedies, there's a rule of 3, and so that would obviously fall into that theorem.
Yeah. That's a good word, theorem. I like that.
Theorem.
Yeah.
Yep.
So the second time the guy delivers the pizza is also one of my other favorite scenes.
Okay.
Because Kevin's figured out how to manipulate this old VHS mobster movie
Yep.
to get this free pizza.
So I want to pause you for a second. So he had just watched that movie and it terrified him. Yeah. Okay, because he covers his eyes when the shooting happens.
Yeah.
And he yells, "Mom."
Right.
Then he's watching it again, and he's totally fine with it.
Yeah.
He's sitting in the chair eating ice cream, and he's watching the same scene that terrified him, the night before?
So I think when the pizza guy comes and he uses that clip, I think he just has it on standby ready.
Okay.
So the first time he watches it, he's eating all that ice cream and marshmallows and
Yeah.
chocolate.
Right.
And he sees that scene, and the old guy blows the guy away in the movie with the
Yeah.
gun, and that's when he freaks out. He
Yeah.
goes out and freaks out. But then I think this is a good like child moment.
Okay.
He's like, if it scared me, it'll scare this pizza guy, and he'll just leave the pizza there for free.
That's good thinking. Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
So he uses that clip, the same clip that freaked him out.
Yeah.
To get this
scare that
pizza.
guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I love that whole little exchange.
And then he uses it again on
Marvin Harry.
Yeah.
That's my other favorite scene. Is it's all surrounded by this fake movie
Yeah.
that for years I didn't know was fake. They shot it just for this movie.
Right.
That old black and white.
Angels with Filthy Souls is
It
the name of the
sounds
movie.
real to me.
Yep.
And it would be like out in the 50s. It was shot in black and white.
I mean, that's what it was designed to look like,
yeah,
right?
Yeah. So my other favorite scene, Marvin and Harry are in front of the house, and they're kind of confused because they go by the house initially to try to break in,
Mm-hmm.
and Kevin sees their shadow walk by the window. So they go to the back door to try to open the door, check and see if it's unlocked and there's anyone home. Kevin goes through the kitchen, flips that light switch on, the light comes on, and then they quickly run off. They scurry off. The next day they're sitting in front of the house, broad daylight, and it looks like there's nobody there. There's no movement in the house. They can't tell. So Harry suggests Marv go check it out. So Marv goes to the back door, and Kevin's got the clip for that movie again ready to play. And Harry's outside at the back door, listening to this argument between the old guy in the film and the guy that gets killed. And again, when you hear the gunshots, Harry goes diving over the trash cans.
Yeah.
And scurries off through the snow back into the car. He's frantic, and Marv's like, "What is it? What happened?" And Harry says, "Man, there's already two guys in there. Somebody got blown away."
Yeah.
And so he's like, "Well, tell me what happened." Da da da. He said, "Well, it sounded like there's two guys arguing. And there were gunshots."
And he's like, "Did you catch a name?"
He's like, I didn't recognize one of them, but one of them sounded like his name was Snakes."
Yeah.
And Marv goes,
"Snakes."
Snakes. I don't know no snakes."
Yeah.
And
And then he goes, "He sound like a snake."
sounded like a snake.
We laughed a lot at that line. Yeah. Let's talk about the cinematographer of this movie, because I think a lot of these shots were really cool and really designed well.
So before you do that, this kind of ties into what you're about to go into.
Okay.
I read that a lot of the camera angles in this film were shot low, from a child's perspective. Did I take your? That I didn't.
I was going to talk on that.
Okay,
talk
yeah,
about
but
that
please
too.
talk more about it if you got something on
Well,
it.
finish what you're saying.
I finished.
Oh, well, so in the beginning of the movie,
Yeah.
the camera angles are low.
Yeah.
To show how he's helpless.
Right, okay.
Right? And he's small. The camera angles change and raise up higher later because he's found himself
Okay.
and found his courage or his
Yeah.
strength. So I love it whenever cinematographers choose to do things like that.
Yeah.
So the cinematographer is Julio Macat. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correct, but tons of movies.
Okay.
Let's just fly
Yeah,
through
ring
some
them
of
off
them.
for me.
Tango and Cash,
Oh, great movie.
Nutty Professor,
Yeah.
The Wedding Planner,
Is that Hugh Grant again? I swear to God.
no, it's
Matthew McConaughey.
No, it's Jenny from the Block,
Oh,
Jennifer Lopez.
yeah. I know who it is.
Okay, well you didn't say anything. So Julio, wow. Julio got his start working on some music videos, which happens a lot.
A lot of
in-
DPs start that way.
A lot of DPs start that way.
Yeah.
So Joe Cocker is who he was making some music videos for.
Okay.
And then he moved on to make movies, and he worked with Van Halen on a live video recording.
Okay.
And then he went into some big movies, and Home Alone was one of his first big movies. Then he moved on to Home Alone 2, So I Married an Axe Murderer, Ace Ventura, Miracle on 34th Street, Nutty Professor, Home Alone 3. So I said The Wedding Planner, Cats and Dogs. Did you see that? Animated animals that are had voices. Alec Baldwin was one of the voices.
Oh, I know what you're talking about, but I didn't see it.
One of my dad's favorite movies. He loves that movie. Wedding Crashers.
For real?
Yeah.
I love that movie.
Still making movies. He's the most recent in 2011, Winnie the Pooh, Pitch Perfect. So still making movies. But I wanted to bring up the fact that piece of trivia that you said about the angles.
The low angles and yeah.
Really cool. So many of the shots that focus on Kevin in the beginning of the movie are filmed from above, making him seem small and helpless. At the end of the movie, Kevin is mostly shot from below, making him seem taller and more confident.
Okay. Well, and there's a specific scene that I'm thinking of listening to you say that where the first time he walks out of the house and he's like, I'm not afraid anymore. Do you hear me?
Yeah.
I'm not. And then old man Marley walks up, and it's from Kevin's POV, he's looking up
Yep.
at old man Marley, and then from old man Marley's POV, he's looking down on Kevin.
Yep.
So that's one prime example.
Yep.
And one thing I've noticed, just in doing this podcast now, we've done a few episodes. When you're doing research on like the production team, cinematographers seem to have a longer career lifespan than like the writers or directors.
Exactly.
Cinematographers always have like a much more vast resume, and directors seem to be a little more specific about the roles they take. Writers, and I think it's because writers, it's much more of a process from a creative mindset.
Yep.
Yeah, you can't just bang out a script every year
Right.
and expect quality. And directors is kind of the same thing.
Yep. And cinematographers just take the script and make a shot list from
Yeah.
the script and design the shots.
And I've never done this, but I would love to work with a cinematographer because, in a way, it's like you're working with it's a co-director in a way.
Yep.
Because you and hopefully, you want to be working with the cinematographer, and you guys are discussing what shots, what angles work here.
Right.
And it's not just I'm the director. You just point and shoot. You
Right.
know.
So in my current job, my boss worked in Hollywood as a camera op.
Okay.
And he's worked on several things, mainly like reality shows like The Bachelorette. He worked on a show called Nathan For You. And so Eric, whenever like for instance, yesterday we had a photo shoot and a video shoot.
Okay.
And he will take the camera and just, because it's natural for him to
Yeah,
grab the camera
right.
and set up the shots. And I'll direct.
Okay.
And so it's a really cool dynamic between us two.
Yeah.
Because I'm the creative side of things, and then he's the more of the camera side of things, like the visual side of things.
Yeah.
How he wants the shots to look, and he'll just set the camera, and we'll just go.
As a director, you gotta love that.
It's
you
a
have
great
You
relationship.
have a DP that knows how to work the camera.
Yep. Knows what lens we need.
Yep.
Knows what kind of lighting needs to be set up for the shot, and it makes things a lot easier for me. Because
Absolutely.
I don't have to think about those things, and I can just stay in the creative mode.
Right.
So it's really cool. So Joe Pesci and Daniel Stern, the two, Marv and Harry, they felt indifferent about the movie's potential during shooting, so they intentionally gave over-the-top performances, neither of them believing this movie would become a massive success. It's interesting to read that because they absolutely were like, when they get hit, it was a bigger impact than actually it looked like.
We talked about this last night because we had a discussion earlier yesterday about how I'm not a fan of like slapstick comedy,
We did, yeah.
and this is very much
This
in
is
that
very
vein.
slapstick.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
This is like Three Stooges for sure.
Right. Oh, yeah, absolutely. And like I think a lot of their actions and their reactions to what was happening
Yeah.
were based on, like Three Stooges and what's the other guy's name? Silent films.
Oh, Chaplin.
Charlie
Chaplin, yeah.
So a lot of those kind of scenarios
Right.
or whatever.
What's interesting about that, because in this movie, when they were like rehearsing the stunts, yeah, they use wires during the stunt rehearsals, but then they decided that the wires show up on camera.
Yep.
So when they actually did some of these stunts,
They were actually doing
yeah,
it.
and a lot of the crew would like cringe because some of this stuff looked really painful.
Right. Catherine O'Hara in 2014 was in an interview talking about how Macaulay Culkin still to this day calls her mom. I love that.
That's cool, yeah.
Because it's not only was this movie important to us as viewers, it was important to who was in it and still is relevant to them to
That's
this
true,
day.
yeah.
So there's a lot of improv happening in this movie, including one of my favorite lines when Kevin goes, "Are you guys done? Or are you thirsty for more?" Which is
Yeah.
an improvised line.
Macaulay Culkin?
Macaulay Culkin
Wow.
improvised that line.
Okay.
Yep. John Candy improvised all of his lines. We talked about this. Marv's line, "Why the hell are you dressed like a chicken?" and "Maybe he committed suicide" were improvised by Daniel Stern.
So we talked about our disdain for Uncle Frank.
Yeah.
So I want to go back to not one of my favorite scenes, but one of the scenes that really solidifies him as like not really a villain, but somebody you're not gonna like in this movie.
Right.
Every time you see him. So shortly after Catherine O'Hara realizes that they left Kevin, they're trying to console her on the plane. Peter's right there, Frank's there with his wife. she's going on about how I can't believe we forgot him, this
How
and that.
she's just such a bad mom.
I'm such a bad mom, yeah.
Right.
And then Frank chimes in, well, if it makes you feel any better, I forgot my reading glasses.
Like, and you've had people say something like that
Yes,
too before.
absolutely.
And they try to make every situation about them.
Yep.
Or they want to relate to it just to make it about them.
Right.
And I hate that.
Yeah.
That's very disgusting to me.
Because I took that when he said that in that way, and also I took it as, well, let me try to throw in some humor to make her laugh. And it's not a moment for that.
I don't
That's a bad
know,
joke.
man. I think he just wanted to really just be. I mean, he's just such a selfish person.
Yeah. And you kind of get that too because, like I said, in the
I know how you feel. I forgot my reading glasses.
Reading glasses,
like,
really?
Really? Like, come
Yeah.
on, dude. Like, those are not. This is a child.
right,
You
can't even compare those two.
You cannot
at
compare. Yeah. So there's a scene whenever Marv is climbing into the window, and he's stepping on the
the tar?
ornaments, the broken glass ornaments.
Oh yeah.
Those were actually candy.
Okay.
Yeah. So it wasn't glass.
Well, that's impressive to make it look like real ornaments.
Yeah, it did. It looked like it was crumbling, like a real glass ornament would crumble.
Well, you made a comment last night about so he steps through the window.
Yeah.
He like slams his feet down.
Like so hard.
And you say nobody would ever
Yeah, like
slam their feet down
Yeah.
on that.
Yeah.
Which I think again goes to the fact that you said earlier how they tried to overact their scenes.
Right.
I think that's a part of that.
we were just talking about the stunts and how they actually were doing their stunts.
Yeah.
Well, Macaulay Culkin had a stunt man too.
Okay.
Did you know about this?
No, I didn't.
I didn't until I just read this. Macaulay Culkin's stunt double was a very short 30-year-old man.
Wait, would that make him a midget?
It doesn't say that, but
Macaulay
maybe.
Culkin, 30 years old. Macaulay Culkin's 8. He's not.
So this man probably was a midget.
He's like 3 foot.
Yeah.
See, now I want to go back and watch to try and catch those moments.
Yeah.
I mean, it would have to be like shots from like Kevin's back. You can't
Right.
see his face, obviously.
Right.
But I guess they had similar build.
Must have.
So another boy body.
Oh God.
Call back to.
Call back. During rehearsal for the scene where Harry attempts to bite off Kevin's finger, Joe Pesci actually bit Macaulay Culkin, leaving a small scar.
I would have sued.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
We were talking about bad parenting earlier. Writer and producer John Hughes was worried that mothers would never believe a family could forget one of their kids. So Chris Columbus recalled, John really filled in every possible logic hole, and the audience always bought it.
Oh, yeah. I bought it too.
Yeah, I mean, you buy into it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's a testament to the writing, though, for sure.
The concept for this movie originated during the filming of a scene in Uncle Buck in '89, in which Macaulay Culkin plays a character who interrogates a would-be sitter through the letter opening in the front door. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I do.
It's so funny.
Yeah, that's funny. That's really funny.
Yeah. And that really showed us how good of an actor at such a young age Macaulay Culkin was.
He was definitely one of the few like really talented kids at that age. I would
Right.
say Dakota Fanning would be one.
Okay, yeah.
She's have you seen Men on Fire?
Absolutely.
Okay, yeah.
I love Man on
She's
Fire.
one of the only few child actors I can think of that had that much talent at a young age.
Yep. That's one of my favorite Tony Scott movies.
Same. Me too.
I loved him as a director. He's not with us anymore.
Yeah.
But I also love his brother, Ridley Scott.
Same. So you talked about the genesis, for this movie. So John Hughes came up with the script when he was planning a vacation, making a checklist to go through of things that he wouldn't want to forget. And he starts thinking to himself, wow, what if I forgot my kids? And he ends up writing like 8 pages of notes on that one little one-off idea.
Wow.
And it becomes this script.
Yep.
And I love that from a writer's standpoint because I've had people ask me, it's like, man, where do you get inspiration to write the stories you come up with? And I just say, man, inspiration for me comes from anything and everything.
All the time, everywhere.
Yeah.
Right.
Right off mic earlier today, I was talking to you about an idea I had for a thriller that I want to write. One night we were at the movies and I had to go to the bathroom and I left my phone, or I was going to leave my phone on the little
Yes.
desk. And as I'm in the bathroom, I'm thinking to myself, what if I left my phone and I had these shady pictures of these dead bodies and Brad's going through my phone. And out of that, in the bathroom, in 30 seconds, I'm gone.
Yep.
I came up with this whole story.
That's cool. So imagine this movie without John Williams' score. The iconic score I love the themes he wrote for this, and it's all that's how he does. That's how he composes.
Well, he's a theme writer.
Exactly.
Composer.
Like, very thematic.
Yeah.
With Star Wars, everybody has a theme.
Superman.
Luke has a theme. Leia has a theme.
Yeah.
The Force has a theme. The dark side has a theme. Right. So with this, John Williams stepped in when the original composer backed out. So there was another composer before he was actually chosen.
Interesting.
And the filmmakers never thought they could get John Williams, but he saw an early cut of the movie and was enchanted.
Wow.
And so he stepped in and did the score.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad because it's such a good score.
It
I was
is.
listening to it before you got here.
Okay.
I had it playing on the stereo, and it's so cool.
It's another iconic.
Yeah, and
Score.
gives me the feels of Christmas.
Yeah, and it's one of those like no matter where you hear it, you just you immediately think of this movie.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Everyone on set was amazed with how mature and professional Macaulay Culkin was. Joe Pesci told Entertainment Weekly, "Mac is not like a 9-year-old. He's an old man already."
Yeah. Well, I mentioned last night we were watching this. There are certain moments where his delivery of some of his lines, that the inflections that he uses, are very adult, and I think that's kind of a testament to kids when they're around adults, like they go through that mimicry stage where they mimic what parents say, how they say it, their bodily movements, their hand movements, and I think that you see a lot of that in his portrayal in this film.
Right.
Like this, one of my favorite scenes is when he goes to the grocery store and he's grocery shopping.
Yep.
He's got a grocery cart full of stuff.
Like normal things that parents would buy.
Right.
Right.
And he pushes the cart up and he's reading this magazine and he asks the checkout girl, "Have you had this dinner before?"
Right.
And she's like, "I don't know." He's like, "Is it any good?" She's like, "I don't know." He's like, "I'll give it a whirl."
Yeah.
And then she's scanning like the orange juice. She's like, "Oh wait, I have a coupon for that. It was
yeah.
in the paper this morning."
Yeah.
It's like the way he says it, what he says.
All very parent-like.
Yeah.
Even the scene whenever they're having a heart-to-heart. So the old man in the church.
And
they have this heart-to-heart, and he's giving him some advice.
Right.
And it's some really there's some wisdom in what he's saying.
Yeah.
To the old man, and the old man's got wisdom too. And so they're kind of just trading off have this really good banter. And then at the end, the guy goes, "Well, it's good talking to you." And Macaulay Culkin goes, "Good talking to you."
Good talking to you,
He's,
yeah.
Like the way his inflection.
Yes.
He's the way he said it, a 9-year-old would not say it like that.
No, there's no way.
Yeah,
No.
and I loved the way he delivered that line. It's good talking to you.
And I like because that conversation starts off, old man Marley is like the adult,
Yep.
sharing wisdom to Kevin, and then it flips by the end, and this young kid's giving him wisdom.
Yep.
Because old man Marley's in this church to watch his granddaughter sing.
Yep.
Because him and his son had a falling out, so they don't really spend holidays together. They haven't spoken in years.
Yep.
And Kevin starts to kind of give him this speech about, well, you should reach out to your son and give him a call. I mean, that's the worst. What's the worst that can happen? It's
Yeah.
the least you can do.
Exactly.
And then old man Marley says, "Well, what if he won't talk to me?" And Kevin says, "Well, at least you tried, because you'll never know."
Right.
So
John Hughes, I've said this before, and I'll say it again. John Hughes is really good at capturing the human condition, writing scripts about the human condition. And this little side story,
Yeah.
Under the whole big umbrella of the Home Alone story, is this man's relationship with his son.
Right.
And we've, of course, you can relate to that.
Yeah.
It's relatable, right? Even leaving a kid home at home alone is relatable. It may not have happened, but you've thought about it happening.
Yeah.
Right? A parent has thought about this happening, and it's kind of more of a nightmare situation.
Yeah.
But what I'm talking about is the human condition of the old man Marley and how he hasn't talked to his son in years.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Spoken to his son in years. And it's the holiday season, and there's feelings. There are negative feelings about going into the season, about not talking. It's just all relatable.
Yeah. I think there's a duality to the title because
Yeah.
old man Marley's always home alone.
He's home alone.
And he's always reminiscing about his family. You can tell he wants to rekindle that relationship with his son.
Right.
And rebuild that bridge.
And see his granddaughter.
Yeah.
Or was it niece? I don't remember.
It's his granddaughter.
Granddaughter.
But it's really sad because he has to go to the church to watch her sing.
Yeah.
That's the only way he can see her.
And it's a rehearsal.
Yeah.
It's not really the performance.
Right.
And there's nobody in the audience except for Macaulay Culkin and this guy.
Yeah.
Old man Marley.
And his character was added. So Columbus got an uncredited rewrite in the script. He added old man Marley's character to give the film a more emotional tug especially for the ending scenes.
Yeah.
And I like that scene at the end after Kevin's gone through the whole deal with the guy trying to rob the house.
Yep.
And they get caught. And then the next morning, it's Christmas morning. Kevin wakes up and his family comes home. They kind of all share embrace and joke and move on. And he looks out the window and sees old man Marley hugging his son and granddaughter. And old man Marley sees Kevin look from the window and they give a wave and a hug. Yeah.
It's a nice bow right there.
Yeah.
Nice tie up.
So I have a really cynical comment that I made one year. I'm watching this movie with my sister and brother-in-law, like we do often.
Yep.
Part of the tradition. And there's a piece of music. I can't remember what song it is. It's a Christmas song. It's popular. You know it.
Okay.
But it starts to play right after Marv and Harry are arrested, and Kevin's giving them that little smirk, like, I got you guys. I got the best of you guys.
Right.
And they drive off. It's the Have Yourself a Very Little Christmas.
Okay.
I think it's the Bing Crosby version.
Okay.
So this is how weird my brain thinks. And I'm watching this movie with my sister and my brother-in-law, and that song comes on, and I'm starting to think about, for a lot of people, we talked about this earlier, how some people aren't into the Christmas spirit because a lot of them feel more lonely then than any other time of the year.
Yep.
'Cause that's the time you want to be with your family or whatever, and you can't for whatever reason. So I think there's a lot of depression that spikes during the Christmas season.
Absolutely.
And I started thinking about, while we're watching this, that song, Have Yourself a Very Little Christmas, comes on. It ends, and it cuts to the next morning, Christmas morning in the film. And I'm thinking, this is the part of the film, I say this out loud to my sister and brother-in-law, this is the part of the film where it feels like a dark film. It would pan to a guy in his house, an old guy in his house, with a shotgun in his mouth, and he kills himself.
Oh, man.
And they looked at me right away. They had to pause the film. And they looked at me with such disdain. And my sister's like, you're not my brother. You can't say stuff like that. And my brother-in-law, I think at the time, he wasn't that familiar with me and how my brain works. And he was just like,
I bet he got real familiar with
this is the family I married into. Yeah.
That's crazy. So there's a piece of trivia that I just read. When 9-year-old Macaulay Culkin got tired on set, he would just lie down on the ground and sleep.
Believable.
Yeah.
That's a real thing. So I didn't know about this until I did a little research on this. So like you say, he's 9 years old in real life, 8 in the movie, his character. And I guess there's a Hollywood rule that there's a bedtime, because he had to be in bed by 10.
I think it's a child labor law type
you
thing.
can't keep him up past 10.
Yeah.
And Joe Pesci had a big complaint because his ritual was he would play a few holes of golf before going to a set for his movies.
Oh, okay.
So there was a big issue with production about that. But
Because he couldn't do that.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I think one day he even grabbed one of the guys by the collar. It's like, I got to get my 9 holes in before I come to work. So he was upset about the call time, which was 7 a.m. And it was, like I said, done because Macaulay Culkin couldn't be out or up past 10. But they worked out the schedule and they moved his call time to 9, from 7 to 9.
Yeah.
So he could still get his 9 holes in.
Do you remember the part where he's looking through in Buzz's room, and he's looking through the chest, and there's Playboys in there, and he's looking through the magazine?
Yeah.
The pages were taped together so that Macaulay Culkin couldn't see the nudity.
Nice.
That's interesting.
Okay.
Do you remember the photograph of Buzz's girlfriend?
I remember it because of the line that he says. He's like, "Oh, Buzz, your girlfriend, woof."
Yeah. So that's actually a boy.
I thought so.
In the photograph, being made up to look like a girl.
And a bad wig and glasses. Yeah, I
Yep.
thought that's what that was.
Yep.
I have a question about, so also in Buzz's room, and it's shown a couple of times, and it's actually used as a plot device. I talked about this last night.
Yep.
Buzz has a pet tarantula in his room.
And every time it would come on screen last night while we're watching, you and I have arachnophobia.
Oh, for real?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I am terrified of spiders.
Okay.
And so every time it came on scene, you and I both would have a reaction to it.
Yeah, because I don't like the way spiders move. They've got those extra legs.
Right.
And every time the camera has the spider in its frame, it'll kind of crawl and then swiftly crawl.
Dart.
And
yeah.
I don't like that it can move that quick. And it's a dangerous spider. And so at the end of this film, the family comes home, the movie ends.
Yep.
That spider's on the loose somewhere in that house.
Yeah, still just out.
Yeah.
So I think the reason why we saw it so many times was to build the tension or make the scene scarier.
Okay.
Whenever he would grab it and put it on Marv's chest.
Yeah.
Also, that scream that we hear when Marv gets the spider put on his chest was a live on-set scream Typically, we've talked about this before. ADR is used. Not a lot of the audio that's on set is really used in the film.
Yeah.
Every time I hear that scream, I can tell that it kind of like overmodulates the microphone.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like he peaked in the levels were really too hot.
Yeah.
And now I know why, because it was a real scream that they left into the movie.
Right.
Normally they would have him redo that take because the audio levels were too hot.
Yeah.
And he was in the red, and so they would re-record it. But they left that one in there.
When I see that scene every time, because when he screams,
Yeah.
two of the legs of the tarantula kind of go into his mouth when he screams, because he has his mouth open so wide.
Yeah.
And it just freaks me out because I
Dude.
keep thinking, you scream,
That,
and that spider's on your face.
He's
You're gonna freak
crawling
the
in.
spider. It's gonna bite your face.
yeah, or just crawl into your mouth.
Yeah, it's
That's
terrifying.
terrifying. Yeah.
And right after that is one of my favorite moments because you even highlight it. He like freaks out and jumps up, and the spider lands on Marv's chest.
On Harry.
Harry's
Yeah.
chest. Can you hear that? On Harry's chest.
Yeah.
Because Harry's knocked out.
Yeah.
And Marv picks up the crowbar, and he's like, Harry, don't move.
Yeah.
It doesn't tell Marv what's going on.
And Harry's like, "What are you doing, Marv?
Yeah.
What are you doing, Marv?"
And he's like, Harry, don't move.
Yeah.
And he's like, Marv,
Yeah.
Marv.
Yeah.
And he hits him with his crowbar, cracks his chest.
Right on his chest cavity.
Yeah.
And like it literally would have broken his sternum.
It's a great sound effect they use for that.
It's a crowbar hitting bone. Like that's, man, it would have been real bad. So there's that scene when Macaulay Culkin gets on the sled and he's lining up his trajectory
yeah.
to slide down the stairs to go out the front door. Clearly, they're not lined up.
At all.
Like, that's not going to
You
happen.
can see it.
Yeah. But that sled that Kevin uses when sledding down the stairs, which can also be seen next to the television when Kevin is watching How the Grinch Stole Christmas, is in Chris Columbus's office. The entire cast signed it.
Oh, very cool.
That's cool. I like that.
You always hear about stories about after a movie wraps,
Yep.
then, the actors are in some interview and they're like, well, did you take anything from the set?
Yep.
Because a lot of times they don't let actors take stuff from the set.
Yep.
So they'll just steal it.
Right. This movie is considered a traditional Christmas movie in Poland. It has aired on national television during primetime Christmas season every year since 1990. In 2011, the movie aired on December 23rd with an audience of over 5 million, making it the most popular show aired during the Christmas season in Poland.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's not just you and me that love this movie. Everyone watches this movie every year.
Yeah. So in Poland, I'm assuming obviously they've got the dubbed over voices for the Polish language. And it reminds me of the scene in Home Alone where
They're watching
It's a Wonderful Life.
It's a Wonderful
and
Life.
it's in French. Yeah.
Is it French?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting you talk about that just now because the movie originally had more scenes of the family in Paris, but test audiences wanted to get back to Kevin.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I wonder what else they filmed.
Me too.
Or if they, what were they about?
Yeah.
That's interesting to think about.
And something I always had a problem with, and it stood out to me for sure last night. So Kevin's mom gets home first, because John Candy got her home Christmas morning. She walks in and she's frantic calling Kevin's name out. And then they kind of reconcile. And then a few seconds later, the whole family rushes in the door. So you guys flew to Paris 3 days ago and booked a flight right back.
Yeah.
It's Christmas Day, so they never say this for sure, so we don't know, but was the plan to come back Christmas Day, or is it to stay longer? Because the night before, Kevin's putting presents under the tree.
That's true.
But there wasn't a tree made because Marv and Harry are watching Kevin cut the tree down.
Yeah.
So it makes me think they were planning to stay through Christmas.
Yeah, not come home during Christmas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So obviously that means Kevin's, like I said, he's putting presents under the tree.
Right.
When they went to the grocery store, I'm assuming he bought gifts for all of his family.
Right.
So they purchased this expensive flight to Paris, and then they have to purchase an emergency
A return flight.
home in like 3 days.
Which would have been a much more of an expensive ticket in reality.
Yeah, last minute, and it's on Christmas Day.
Right.
And then just the travel time, just in the air.
Oh my gosh.
You can't even enjoy your
The jet
Paris.
lag.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. So as a writer, when you're coming up with ideas, you've done this before, you've written scripts, and you had a certain actor in mind. In fact, you've written a script and you wanted me to play a certain part.
Yeah.
So John Hughes wrote this with Macaulay Culkin in mind.
Okay.
But Christopher Columbus was the director. So he actually auditioned hundreds of boys
Wow.
To play the role of Kevin McAllister. According to the DVD commentary, Columbus was hesitant to cast Culkin because Hughes had just so recently cast him in Uncle Buck and didn't want to appear as a pushover in the film community. It was only after auditioning all the other young actors that he realized Culkin was, in fact, the best choice for the part.
Wow. I hear these stories often where the directors, they audition hundreds of kids for these roles. I often wonder, like, after a while, is like every kid just the same? Like they start to all blur together.
Right.
And you wait for that one that just stands out, or you go through those hundreds of kids, and because they blur together, you just say, okay, let's go with the original guy because these all seem the same to me now. So you just kind of fall back on the original plan.
Yeah. So John Hurd, the dad, Peter McAllister, was unhappy about working on this movie.
Why?
He had the feeling that the movie was going to be terrible. However, upon seeing the finished product, its subsequent success, Hurd apologized to Columbus when they were shooting his scenes for Home Alone 2, Lost in New York, having broken character before his first take to tell Columbus. Columbus said he still had footage of Hurd's apology on videotape.
Really? That's cool.
Yeah. Despite being home alone in the movie, Kevin is never seen in his own room.
That is true.
He's always in everybody, like he's
Man.
always in mom and dad's room sleeping.
Yeah.
Or is in Buzz's room.
Yep.
Or in the kitchen, or the family room or
Yeah.
whatever, watching the movie.
I can't
Never in his
believe
own
we've
room.
Never caught that before.
Yeah. We've never actually seen his own room.
Ever, yeah. So let's talk just for a couple of seconds about something that stood out to me. I mentioned again to you last night that I didn't really, I guess it never registered until last night. Like I said, I catch things differently when I'm watching it with you or somebody else
Yeah.
versus on my own.
Right.
Every cop that's in this movie has a leather jacket on. Mm-hmm. It's just crazy to me. You don't see cops with leather
You talked
jackets.
about this last night, and like, I've only been to New York once, and I didn't really see a lot of cops, but they weren't wearing leather
They don't wear leather
But
jackets.
like in movies, whenever you think about cops in New York or in big cities like Chicago or whatever, they're wearing
leather
leather
jackets.
jackets.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess it's a stylized look.
I mean, leather is, these two cities we're talking about, Chicago and New York, there's a lot of cold weather,
Yeah.
right? A lot of rain. Isn't leather like automatically like weatheriproof?
Or I guess
Like repels water?
more insulated, and
Yeah.
also it repels water.
Yeah,
so maybe that's what it is.
Maybe it's a, geographical
Yeah.
thing.
I just thought that was odd.
So the man who played Old Man Marley was Roberts Blossom, and he considered this movie one of his high points in his career. Blossom said kids would often recognize him from playing Old Man Marley and ask, "Aren't you the guy?" In May of 2011, the house in Winnetka, Illinois, used in this movie, was listed for sale at $2.4 million. It sold in March 2012 for $1.5 million. The house is promoted as a tourist attraction and cited as an example of how to get your home in the movies.
I read somewhere, and correct me if I'm wrong, or you may not even be aware, but I read that John Hughes shot a lot of his big '80s films in this city, in Chicago, or this neighborhood in Chicago.
Yeah.
And I think even Ferris Bueller and Uncle Buck, some of their set pieces were the same Home Alone set at that old high school.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. There's a scene where, the last scene shot in the movie was the scene where Kevin McAllister's running through the basement of that house that they turned the water on.
flooded, yeah.
So there's the water. The water was from the gymnasium pool.
Okay.
And then he goes up and he they get him. They hook him on
Catch
that
him
door
hook
and
him up on
stuff.
the door.
Yeah.
That's a good cheat because there's already water there.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if that shot was that scene was designed after the gymnasium was chosen. They're like, oh, they've got a pool. Let's use this for this.
Yeah.
Like inspired on set or whatever.
Right.
Chris Columbus was previously hired by John Hughes to direct National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. After meeting with Chevy Chase, however, it became clear to Columbus that the two of them would not get along. So he asked Hughes if there were any other projects he could work on instead. This movie was one of the options presented to him.
Wow.
So we talked earlier about how John Hughes typically directs his movies, but Chris Columbus was chosen for this.
Yeah.
We're just going to go through some more trivia because a lot of these things are super interesting to know about after you've watched this movie so many times. Do you know that? Remember that scene whenever Kevin goes to find and talks to Santa, and Santa has that really old crappy car?
Yeah.
The stall out was real. Like it actually happened, and they just left it in.
So another happy accident.
Yeah, another happy accident, which I think happens a lot.
Yeah. So you haven't talked about any of your favorite scenes yet. I've kind of, strung off a few of mine.
Yeah, like I really like that scene, the toothbrush scene. Whenever he like goes in there.
Yeah.
And the whole running away from the cop thing.
Yeah.
And the way it was shot, like I guess they put the camera on like some skis or something in front of Kevin, in reverse to shoot all that stuff. It was
Right.
I love the way that whole thing is shot.
Yeah.
There's the classic scenes where he puts on the movie and is faking out the guys.
Yeah.
I mean, all of the stunts, all that stuff. I love it. Mm-hmm. And like you said last night, it doesn't matter how many times I've seen it. Mm-hmm. It hits the same every time. And I love movies like that. And this is one of those movies.
I personally like when Marv and Harry come back to the house the next night, and Kevin's like orchestrated this whole little deal in the window.
He's got Michael Jordan's cut out on the train. And he uses some of those mannequins in the basement.
Yeah.
And they puts clothes on him, and they're like he ties ropes to him. That's really cool. I like that scene.
Make it look like the house is full. There's music playing.
The scene that we were talking about earlier in the church between Old Man Marley and Kevin, I love the realism and the humanity of that scene.
Right.
And so I like that scene a lot. And then like when his mom comes and he does that little face where he like pretends like he's
mad at her,
and then he like he kind of smiles and they hug and stuff. I love that part.
Yeah.
Yeah. But man, this is a movie that we've said this before. We watch every year. I will watch this again in a few weeks when Remy's here.
Yeah.
And we'll watch 1 and 2. I've never seen 3. I think there's a 4th.
There's a 3rd and a 4th, and I think there's like a spin-off 5th.
Yeah, like I've never seen any of those.
Now the 3rd, 4th, and 5th don't have any of the original cast.
Yeah. But I watch 1 and 2. I'm sorry. I watch 1 more than I watch 2.
Yeah, me too.
I watch both of them over and over, but I watch 1. I return to Home Alone more and more.
I haven't seen 2 in probably a decade.
Yeah.
Like I really just am not a fan of part 2.
Yeah.
It's just so different from the first one. The first one's like an isolated house.
Yep.
Like I said before, the second one is the entirety of New York City. To me, it was they tried to do too much. And you bring in the old homeless woman with the, what are the pigeons? For me, it just wasn't the same.
I agree. It's not the same. It's fun. I do return to it a lot, but it's not the same.
Yeah.
Well, guys, Home Alone, if you haven't seen it by now, I don't know how you haven't, or you must live in a cave, because this movie is a wildly popular movie that just about everybody that I know loves this movie.
Same, me too.
Not only the movie, the score, like Macaulay Culkin, his whole career, like just everything about this movie I love.
This movie has, in my opinion, some of the best renditions of Christmas songs. Because like I mentioned last night,
Absolutely.
These Christmas songs are iconic, but they've been made and remade a million times over the last 50, 60, 70 years.
Right.
And this movie to me has the best versions of those Christmas songs in it.
That's cool.
To me.
Rockin' Around the Christmas Tree.
Yeah.
The original.
Run Rudolph.
Yep, Run Rudolph. Yep. Charles Brown sings a song called Please Come Home for Christmas. And it's been remade by the Eagles.
Okay.
Which is probably the more popular version of the song.
Yeah.
But that version right there is one of my favorite versions.
It's played in a perfect moment in the film because it's played when Kevin's mom is saying goodbye to her family. So they're going to go to Paris.
Yep.
And she's going to try to find her way back home to her kid.
Yep.
So
really good music. So every aspect of this movie we love.
Hits 10 out of 10, man.
It's 10 out of 10.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. So obviously Beards and Flicks gives this movie a 10 out of 10.
Yes.
We love it so much. Guys, thank you for joining us, and hopefully you guys have a Merry Christmas.
Later.